I've seen how Atlassian has made an impact on thousands and thousands of people around the globe, and how each Atlassian wants to bring something good into the world and help make it a little bit better. And I've seen this reflected in the Atlassian community too. The Atlassian community leaders, they're a group of do-gooders. They want to do good. They want to give back.
How have you seen the Atlassian development side of the house evolve over time, and where do you see it going in the future, or where would you like for it to go?
Yeah, I think it is one of the things I strongly believe in, is in helping others excel at what they do. And I feel like Martin believes in this too. We're here to help lift up each other.
Today's video is sponsored by Resolution's out-of-office assistant for Jira and JSM. Stop manually reassigning tickets and start using this amazing app that does it all for you. It integrates with Slack, Calendar, and so many other integrations that automatically and seamlessly make reassigning tickets a breeze when somebody is out of office. Check it out using the link down below. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Summer of Atlassian. Today I got Peter, and we're going to be having a great conversation about him being a founder, and we're going to kick things off with talking about another founder. Let's talk about Martin. What's his influence in your life?
I was actually watching your video with Martin earlier today, and Martin and I, we go way back. The funny thing is, we've known each other of each other for over a decade, but we only met in person for the first time at Team in Vegas this year.
This year,
yes.
wow.
And he immediately pulled me in for a video interview where we talked about the Atlassian ecosystem, Atlassian's history, and how it has evolved. And Martin has always been one of the wonderful people in the Atlassian ecosystem. I've been in this ecosystem for over 15 years. I've met countless of wonderful people, and Martin is one of those people. They're helpful, they share knowledge, they want everybody to succeed. They want to share the pie because the pie is so big.
Very big, yeah.
That is one of the reasons why I love being in the Atlassian world. That is the mental mindset of most people here. There's plenty for us to share. And by sharing, you create more. And by creating more, there's more for everybody to enjoy, both in knowledge, in money, in resources, in projects, in ideas, in people to get to know, in places to travel to. The Atlassian ecosystem for me has changed my life, has changed every single thing I've ever done especially in the last decade. And Martin is one of those people who has made this possible by connecting with him, by him connecting me with others, by just being himself, representing Seabird Media, by being an exemplary force in the Atlassian ecosystem, a force for good. And so, yeah, that's my vision of Martin. I also just want to say to everybody, make sure to watch the interview. Martin makes some really, really good points on giving back and how giving back actually makes things better for everybody, including yourself.
We'll have to link that one in the description of this video, because I've been doing I don't know. So I set out to do 45 interviews this summer, and I'm probably at this point right around 40. Right, we're getting towards the end of the list here. And when I did Martin's, I was probably at number 30, right? So I had already done quite a few. And when I had met Martin at Team 24, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
He did an interview with me, just like you. But that's about the reach of my knowledge, other than the fact that I know I went to his the info session on Monday, right? But again, he's running the whole thing, so it's not like he had a whole lot of time to chat with him, right? And so when I had a chance to sit down with him, I remember walking back to my wife's my editor and producer, right? She helps me out with this, run this whole thing. And I go, I just probably had one of the most meaningful conversations of my life was when I talked to Martin. It was just like so not like any conversation I've ever had with anyone.
No, that's basically Martin for you. Yes.
Yeah, thumbs him up real nice. Yes, I've also gone down this like road of just exploring Martin a little bit more, right? And I just found it so interesting. Like he's been there since like almost feels like day one, right? Like you look back at their channel and all the videos and interviews and their involvement with just growing this Atlassian ecosystem, it goes way, way back.
Yes, there's a reason why the very first ever Atlas Camp, which is a conference for developers building on top of the Atlassian world, was in Wiesbaden, where Sabre Media is based. So he's been in the ecosystem for a long time, has really good contacts, and like I said, he's been an example.
Yeah, yeah. No, I again, my hats off to Martin and the stuff that he's been creating. Just this company, his model, really the way that they do that, like investing, but more mentorship. I just thought, and I know you probably watched me mention this in his interview, right? Like, it breaks my heart to see some of the people that are in the Atlassian ecosystem that have like been acquired, and like just some of the politics that have like come out of it. Like, just breaks my heart. And for him to say like, hey, it's okay for you to have a great idea. It's okay for you not to have to sell your company. And it's okay if you need more help. Like, we're here. And I just thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I think it is one of the things I strongly believe in is in helping others excel at what they do. And I feel like Martin believes in this too. We're here to help lift up each other.
No, absolutely. I think sometimes like rivalries get a little too big, right? Like, even within me, within this YouTube space, right? There's more and more people every day that are coming into creating content for the Atlassian ecosystem. And it always, like, I'm not gonna lie that the thought doesn't pass my mind of like create more competition. But at the same time, it's like the more we like help each other, the more we raise each other up, like the better. And like, have you ever seen Hamilton? I know you're not from the US, but have you ever seen the
I've
show?
seen the commercials. I've seen the billboards on Times Square. I know it's a Broadway musical,
Yeah,
and I've learned from your interview with Martin that it's based on Alex
yeah.
Hamilton, one of the founding fathers. But that's actually a rap musical, if I'm correct.
It is, yeah. He turned into, so
I haven't
I
seen it yet.
admired so much, yeah. So you know the line that I'm gonna say then, right? Which is like, I don't know why so many people just don't understand the value of, like, literally the ecosystem is big, right? Like, it's big enough for a lot of people to exist. It doesn't have to be that like you lose friendships or you lose partnerships or anything, right? Like, it's Atlassian ecosystem is big enough for a lot of people to coexist.
That is true. And it does mean that there are people in there that you don't want to work with. And it does mean that there are people in there who you want to work with because you share the same values. And that's fine. Both of those things are fine. I think one thing I've learned in the last decade is that it's important to be true to yourself, even though that means that in the short term, you might not take a contract or you might lose a contract or whatever, because in the long term, it's going to pay dividends. Because if you're not yourself, if you're and you align yourself with people that aren't like you, that don't align with your values, you're going to get effed anyway, eventually.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm watching my
So
French here.
yeah, a little bit of French, yeah. But let's then maybe bring this show back to Peter, right? And let's talk about how you got into the ecosystem and what are you doing in the Atlassian ecosystem right now.
How did I get into the ecosystem? That is a long story.
Because
I
looking,
basically,
judging by your shirt, I don't know that I've seen that Charlie icon in a very long time.
it's well, never mind. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
It's an old one, but it's. I was looking through my swag. So the thing is, my swag basically tells the history of me and Atlassian. And I think my oldest T-shirt is probably from 2009. But I started using Atlassian a year after I left university, which was in 2007. I started using Atlassian as a user. It was just Jira. It was better than Bugzilla, and then I started using it as a developer. And eventually in 2011, I think, I became more involved in the Atlassian world, started answering questions on the Atlassian forums and eventually Atlassian answers, and started collecting more t-shirts. I think I have over 100 different Atlassian t-shirts
Wow.
nowadays.
I can't complain then because my wife's like, your closet's getting a little too full.
I was actually cleaning out my closet with my wife a couple of days ago. I was like, okay, I'm going to like say goodbye of these t-shirts because of like I have two of them or like they're like really worn out. But there's still some of my favorite Atlassian t-shirts, and I still miss Charlie, to be honest. Charlie is my favorite logo ever. But so 2007, I was a user. 2011, I became a solution partner. I started selling Atlassian tools and services around the tools. I did the Atlassian Dragon Slayer quests. Don't know if you know that one, but it used to be very difficult to install every single Atlassian tool and then connect them together. This was before cloud. There was this entire quest that you had to go through, step by step, completing every single step and uploading a screenshot of every completed step. Eventually, you had Bitbucket, Crucible, Bamboo, Confluence, and Jira connected to each other. And then you got a t-shirt, the Atlassian Dragon Slayer t-shirt. You can see these like people walking around with them at Atlassian Summit. They're like bright green, has a Charlie logo. It's like fully dressed up as a Dragon Slayer. Like whenever you see one of those people, they've been around for a long time and they did a lot of hard work to get that t-shirt.
I don't know if you watched our Jira Life. I have a second or a second channel with the podcast, right? And we just came up with this idea. I was talking to another content creator, another Atlassian champion, and I was like, how cool would it be to have an episode where it's just like show and tell? Like everybody bring their swag and like, because like you said, right, like you can walk through the history of your involvement in the Atlassian ecosystem through your swag. And I thought it'd be so cool to just get like the community together to like start showing off their swag and like everybody just shares stories. I might try to do it for Scott's retirement here in a couple weeks.
I can show you so many t-shirts, jackets, hoodies, glasses. Like this is an old Atlassian glass, which also, while you can't see it anymore, has the old Charlie logo with the green. I have, I probably lost more swag than I actually still have. And I probably lost more swag than most people ever get.
I don't lose any of my swag. My swag goes into the closet and it stays in the closet. My wife hates it. She's like, I'm an organized hoarder. That's what I am. I have all my junk is organized.
Mine isn't.
No, just throw it in there.
I try to keep it organized, but with 4 kids and a lot of work and all kinds of other stuff happening, it's not always possible.
Oh, trust me. Yeah, once you throw kids into the equation, everything gets off balance.
But yeah, so I was an Atlassian solution partner. At the same time, I was also doing developer advocacy. I wanted to share my knowledge, my insights with the developer world. So I spoke at conferences on my own time and dime. I went to like Java 1 in San Francisco, spoke at a bunch of conferences here in Europe. And I wanted to combine my passion for Atlassian with my passion of public speaking and helping developers excel at what they do. So I applied for a role as developer advocate at Atlassian. Even though Atlassian wasn't really hiring anyway, but through my network, because I was heavily involved in the Atlassian community, I got to know the right people. I eventually got hired at Atlassian and I stayed there for 4.5 years. From doing developer advocacy, I switched over to the ecosystem and helping build out the Atlassian ecosystem. So partners like Martin and tons of others out there, I've helped build their support tools. I've helped build the developer portal, so developer.atlassian.com. I'm the founding father of the Atlassian developer community, which is different from the user community. The user community is where everybody who uses the Atlassian tools go. The developer community is where everybody goes who builds on top of the Atlassian tools. So all of the marketplace partners, all of the internal app builders, anybody who wants to use REST API and has a question about it, that's where the developer community comes in. I've helped run Atlas Camps, which, like I mentioned earlier, is the conference for developers building on top of the Atlassian tools. I've run App Weeks, which are week-long hackathons where we bring Atlassian teams and marketplace partners together. So I was really deeply involved in that part of the community. And of course, while doing that, I was always involved with the community leaders. Because during my original time as a developer advocate, I launched what we call the Atlassian All-Stars, which was way before Community Champion was a thing, with the OG program, the Atlassian All-Stars.
The OG to the OG?
The OG to the OG. It was like the first Atlassian Champion program they ever run. And it was a fun thing to do, and I met some amazing people like Susan at Gale, a whole bunch of others. And some of them still have the Atlassian All-Stars hoodie. There's only 50 of those out there. So if you see the Atlassian All-Stars hoodie, that's also very special.
I am more convinced now than ever that I think on the Jura Live, I'm gonna propose that we do like a 10-hour live stream where people from all over the world just bring in their swag to say goodbye to Scott. Because how more appropriate would it be to like literally bring out all these relics out of storage
Oh yeah,
and
and then I
say
have,
and just give it to Scott and go, thank you for everything you created here, Scott.
he'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So after the Atlassian store, like after 4.5 years at the Atlassian, I wanted to challenge myself and grow as a leader. For a multitude of reasons, I couldn't grow into a leadership role at Atlassian, mostly because I was a contractor. And so I decided to get out of the Atlassian world and join MongoDB. I was their global director of developer community programs. So I ran teams globally focused on supporting over 2 million developers using MongoDB. It was fun. It was definitely a challenge. It was in the middle of Corona, and it showed me a lot about my leadership skills and about how strongly I believe in servant leadership, so helping others grow. It also taught me that the Atlassian community, the Atlassian world, is a very special place with wonderful people. So eventually I came back. And I came back into the marketplace world because I've known so many people here. I stayed in contact with all of them. And nowadays, I have my own company, Polaris, and I provide services to marketplace partners. So I take my entire history, my entire network, all of my knowledge I've gathered over those 15, 16 years, and put those to service to help marketplace partners excel at what they do. And this can be all kinds of things. I can do a review of your listing. I can help you build up business strategies, marketing strategies, community strategies. I can tell you to not do certain things because it wouldn't land well. I can give you insights, historic knowledge, all of those things. And it's a new adventure. If you get to know me better, you'll know I'm always trying new things. I always need to find out what's next. What can I do next? Where can I apply my skills next? Because I don't like sitting still. I don't like just repeating and doing the same thing over and over. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm also an Atlassian online community leader. I'm an Atlassian offline community leader here in Belgium. I just joined the Atlassian Creators Group too. So I'm not going to make YouTube videos. Probably not.
Not yet. Not yet. Let me know when you do. I'll help you out.
That would be awesome. But I'm mostly here to give back. I've been through a couple of like really difficult episodes in my life. One of them was losing a daughter, and they've shown me that giving back is important for the good things you get in life. Not everybody gets the luck I had. Not everybody has the privileges I have, and I was lucky enough to receive. And I want to give back too, and I feel like with my skill set, I can give back to the Atlassian marketplace. I can give back to 1% pledge, or pledge 1%. And so my passion in life is to make others excel at what they do, and that's what I try to do day in day out. And I try to make some money with it too, of course.
just a little bit. Yeah, no, that's such an amazing thing. I knew of your name like coming into the Atlassian ecosystem because I'm fairly new within the Atlassian ecosystem. I started off in 2016, but I started creating content at the tail end of 2021. So let's just call it January 2022. And so it's only been 2 years, right? 2.5 years, and I didn't know anybody until last year. And that I went to Team 23. That's when I started finding out that there were other people that also made content, and so to be here with Peter, now it feels like such an honor.
I feel honored to be on your show, Alex. I think you've been doing amazing work. I think you're educating a lot of people. You're making them aware of what's out there in a way that is easily digestible at a time and place of their own choosing, which isn't always possible with trainings and those kind of things.
Right. Yeah, and I will tell you, I just to resonate like the giving back part, right? One of the reasons why I started the channel is I've suffered with imposter syndrome through my entire career, and I have a coding background, right? I'm a developer at heart, and it's interesting. Like I want to go down that path in a second here because my wife and I, again, I'll save it for a second, but spoilers. I want to talk about the development side of the house. But aside from that, right, when I entered the world of Jira, it was just an IT tool for me. I hated Jira. I don't know that I hated Jira. I hated the idea that the Atlassian tools were all segregated. Kind of like what you were saying with your Dragon Fight, or what was it, Dragon Slayer? Uh,
Dragon's
yeah, because like, well, I came from the world of Team Foundation Server, which was all integrated, vertically integrated into Visual Studio. So I didn't need to leave my IDE, my development environment, to go create a ticket, to go plan my sprint. It was like all in there. And when I
yes.
came to Jira, I was like, wait, I need different URLs, like different products, like they're all different. Like, why would it all be different? Like, why can't it just be in one place like Microsoft has? And so I fought it. I fought it so hard for like the first 6, 8 months of my career. Like, I don't like this at all. But eventually it grew on me, and now I make a living off of it, right?
There
But
you go.
I started the channel, right? I started the YouTube channel because at one point I was like, I'm tired. I remember having conversations. I used to work in defense companies here in the United States, and very much like you, my career was I took pride in this, which was every year since I started my career 14 years ago. Every year I had a different team or a different boss or a different project. Never did I stay anywhere for more than 12 months. Same company, but just different, doing different
Hmm.
things, right? And I got tired of not being good at anything. So I figured, let me get good at something. And I was doing cybersecurity for like 6 months. And then once somebody asked me, hey, go do a pen test for me, I'm like, heck no, I don't even know how to even start with that, right? So I'm like, what else am I good at? I'm like, let me try Jira. And it was me like just documenting, showing people how do we use Jira? And so that's how that started. And now it's grown into something bigger than I ever thought it was going to be.
Isn't that how all things start? Like they start small, eventually they go big, but you don't necessarily expect it.
Yeah.
Um, I can tell you when I started public speaking, I just wanted to, you know what? I wanted to share information. Didn't really care where. And that snowballed into me traveling around the world, meeting amazing people everywhere. Me having been to Australia 8 or 9 times already. Me having traveled to the world to San Francisco more times than I can count. All because I sent some emails and submitted a ticket, submitted a CF to a CFP, and took it from there. Small decisions can have big consequences, both good and bad, but we don't
Right.
always know what the consequences are going to be. But I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you finally found Jira. I can tell you
No,
though, in 2007, the options were very much more limited, and there was none of the products were well integrated. And then so basically, when you were in the Java world, where I was as a developer, you went for the Atlassian. When you were in the .NET
Microsoft
or C Sharp world, you
.NET,
went for
yeah.
the Microsoft stack. That was it.
Yeah, no, I remember. My first line of code, I wrote it in 2006. I accidentally became an engineer. And I say this accidentally because I was in high school and I wanted to take a 5 period day, which means I wanted to go home early from school.
Mhm.
And in order to do that, I had to shift my schedules around and I had to change classes. And I took this class with a teacher whose last name I recognize. It was the same last name as my second grade teacher. And so here I am, my senior year, second grade, and I just took it. I was like, you know what? I recognize the last name. I'm pretty sure it's the husband because I had heard that the husband worked at my school. I never met the guy. And so I just went and took the class for the sole reason that I recognized the last name. And it happened to be a web development class, like in 2006. Now, back then, right,
Yes.
HTML, CSS was a lot, like there was none of this Node.js and none of
No.
these JS. I mean, JavaScript was around, but it was very raw, like, right?
Yes.
And none of these frameworks existed. And yeah, so I learned how to make websites, and I fell in love with coding at that point, and that completely changed my career to go into CS degree and change every aspect of my life. I still go back to my teacher every once in a while, and I tell him thank you for just having his last name.
Yeah, I think for me, it was my dad who, like, got us a computer very early at an early age, and I always was playing around with him. He was playing around in BASIC, and so I was like trying to figure out how that worked. And then we did like this Linux course together when I was 13 years old, and part of it was HTML, but HTML 1.1. So I wrote my first website in Notepad, just basic HTML website about World War II history. And yeah, that got me started down this path too. And eventually I did do a major in computer science, and I still call myself a recovering Java developer.
So now that we're on the topic of development, I did want to transition gears a little bit, right? So I've been trying to build an app since Team 23, so a year and a half now. And let me tell you, getting started with development for the Atlassian ecosystem is not for the faint of heart.
No.
The documentation, it requires you to read in between a lot of lines, and you don't even know where the lines are to read between, right? So what are your thoughts? Like, how have you seen the Atlassian development side of the house evolve over time, and where do you see it going in the future, or where would you like for it to go?
So to be honest, it was much worse.
You think it's gonna go much worse?
No, the thing was used to be
you're not a big fan of Forge.
well, it used to be here's a Jira source code. You can do whatever you want with it, which was both a good thing and a terrible thing, of course, because don't give developers source code because then they'll make.
I wonder what Scott and Mike were thinking at that point in time, right? Like early on, let's just give them to them. Like I would assume like other tools in that era of that time frame, like if you were open source, it was a common thing, right?
It was, and it kind of wasn't because like people were paying for it, and then they got the source code too, and then they could do whatever they want with it. So it was interesting dynamics sometimes, and that's also why they eventually became like built the plugin system. So you get like P1, P2. Those were the what we now call Connect. So previous ways of building apps on top of the Atlassian tools. P1, the actual original version, was built by Mike on a plane ride from Sydney to San Francisco, by the way.
Wow.
Yes. Once again, small piece of history. But P2 is what we call Connect, which a lot of apps still use today because it works both on data center and it works in the cloud. Forge, like you mentioned now, is cloud only and is the next step of how to build apps for the Atlassian world. Unfortunately, as with all developer documentation around the world, docs didn't keep up. Like you said, there's context missing, there's things you need to read between the lines. Some docs might not be fully.
Even having step 1 is missing. Because like you go to Atlassian's API documentation, like they'll walk you through like that bare bone, barely even an example of an example. And then you're like, how do I go from that step -1000 to step 0? Right? And then it's just so much. Thankfully, my wife and I have ChatGPT, and it's been a tremendous amount of help. But I don't think without using an AI to help us, like we'd still be scratching our heads, like figuring out how to make a call.
I think the biggest challenge there is the amount of context that there is. So the thing is, Jira is old enough to drive, and actually old enough to drink in the US nowadays.
Right.
So there have been like REST APIs added on top of REST APIs, and stuff has been added in for so long. Not all of it has been well documented or is like official and whatever. And then they've built another layer on top of this, another layer on top of this. So you get some funky behavior there too. On the documentation side itself, building examples is really, really hard because of the extensive possibilities there. So one thing used to be like something in the Java world that was like built by Sun and no longer maintained by Oracle is the pet shop example. It was basically an online pet store example that like all source code was open source and it showed you all how to build a Java application with a web front. At Atlassian, I know we've tried doing this, build a full-on app where we can open source the code and then like use this as a training tool. It was always put on the back burner because of other more pressing things. I think it would have helped with getting you from the -1,000 to zero. Just seeing a full-on app, see the code, see how it works, see how it does all the calls, stores data, does the authentication, all of those things. I know when I was on that team, we did build small sample apps for Connect. We did like build authentication flows and all of those things. But we never had the time to build out a fully developed, documented example app. And we definitely didn't have the time and resources to maintain it properly, which would then make it even more terrible than having no example app if it was like a bad example app.
Yeah, because like
Yes,
one of my biggest frustrations was like, as we were building it, it took us a while to figure out like the UI kit, right? Like how to build the interface. And so once we had that, because we didn't know React, so we went and got React. And so once we kind of figured all that, then we're like, okay, we got buttons on the screen, we got it's the UI, but then we're like, wait, how do we store this stuff? Like, I don't want when you click away, like the data's gone. And to this day, I don't think we've quite figured out how to store anything without like or like a state or anything, right? Like it's such a hard thing to do. I almost cry myself to sleep.
it is. And fortunately for you, there's the entire developer community out there that can help you and help you answer those
But,
questions.
and I appreciate that, right? I think that's a great thing. But my opinion only is developer communities like that are usually not as user friendly for like complete beginners. Like I'm not saying that they're bad people running it, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is like if you are like new, right, and you're like, hey, I'm making my first app for the first time, you're like in a league of professionals, and you're like kindergarten, and it's overwhelming. It's not that it's again, not that it's there's any hate or badness in the developer community, but it's a very scary mountain to look at when you're standing at the peak at the bottom, right? And you're like, oh boy, because I can appreciate that there's a developer community, but you're like, where do I even get started with the developer? Like, where's the entry point to the path, right? Like, that's kind of where my frustrations are.
It is, honestly, I totally get your frustration, Alex. It is something that was very frustrating to me and my team at Atlassian too, when we were responsible for this because we wanted to build this out. The one thing I can tell you internally at Atlassian is that they're all amazing people, but they reorg way too often. So at an ecosystem was there for 4 years. I think we reorged 6 or 7 times. So and every reorg brings new priorities. Every reorg brings new focus areas and things you want to do. None of those are like they don't make anything we did good or bad. There's other things that
Yeah,
influence the
it's
decision
like
made.
politics, right? Like some politician has 4 years to get certain amount of work done. If they don't get reelected, then the next person can come in and just go in a different direction. And so it
Yes,
takes like there's a lot of teeter totter. You can't make progress when you have different people at the helm.
indeed, and I think that's also partly why this is like a struggle. And of course, some people have been in this industry for 10, 15 years. They're the ones at the peak. Whenever they answer a question, they give you like this like, massive example. And like, this should be obvious to you because it's
Right.
obvious to them. And then the imposter syndrome comes, and you feel like, okay, they're like super smart. I'm not. And like, I'm
Right.
never
That's
going
what
to be able to
it makes
figure
it
this out.
scary. It makes it overwhelming for someone new like my wife and I to jump in there.
But mo- the only thing I can tell you, Alex, is you can do this, but it does take some perseverance and some finding the right people maybe to get like take that first step. And then it shouldn't be like this. Unfortunately, the ecosystem and specifically the developer world has never been the main focus for Atlassian, even though the marketplace is probably its second biggest revenue driver. It always kind of was like the stepchild at Atlassian.
That's right. That blows my mind too because at team this year I was like, why don't we have like a dedicated like Apple's WWDC? Like, why isn't there like a team or Atlassian developer? And I know that they do these little developer days in regionally, right? But those I still feel like you hit the ground running fast already,
There
right? Like
used to
you
be those Atlas Camp. were those. And they did one last year in Copenhagen, but it was like announced pretty late. I don't know yet if they're going to do one this year or even next. But yes,
That might be
those
worth getting
were.
a passport for. But I would love to get together like but something at the scale of team, right? Not like these little like just pop-up shops, right? Like something at team's level
No,
scale where like,
Atlas
hey,
Camp last year was 2.5 days. So same scale as team in size. But of course, it was only, I think, 400 or 500 people because there aren't that many Atlassian developers and there
right,
are Atlassian
developers
customers.
versus users, yeah. No, I think I might. Well, then I definitely need to get some sort of a passport then or something because at least here in the States, I don't know that I've seen. I know that we're gonna. There was a little something that happened for like half a day, like in Austin recently.
Yes.
But yeah, I would like to see something like at WWDC or Microsoft Build
To be
level.
honest, the developer tour is more marketing, I think, than actual content, like
Right.
actual deep dive developer content. And if you want to have deep dive developer content, then you need to go to an Atlas camp or one of those app weeks, which are the full-on week-long hackathons they do around the world.
I need to go look more into that. I will tell you that Matt Mushal, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He has a Udemy course on how to do development. I don't know if you stumbled on it, but
Not
that
yet.
well, so his course, very very few courses on Forge out there, but Matt's class that he has out there was instrumental. Like I don't without his class, I would probably still be step one. And so I think we need more of that. I think I think we need our developers that are in there already to do
Honestly, I
more.
would love to see Atlassian creators for developers. Somebody like you building content specifically for the Atlassian developer community. To be honest, it's been way too long for me since I last wrote an app. I would have like literally have to learn Forge from the ground up again. Last time I used
Right.
Forge was in 2019.
Well, that might be a good live stream sessions for me then. Learn Forge with me.
Or
Because
get frustrated with Forge with me.
or get yeah. But I think there's I mean let's talk about content for a second, right? There's a value between like learning publicly versus teaching. And this is a balance that I've always had to figure out, right? Because I don't know everything about Jira, unfortunately. But people expect me to know everything about Jira, unfortunately. Right? And so there's always this balance of like, how do I teach myself? But how do I teach people? And I've even asked that last one, like, we need like a train the trainer. Like, right, as content creators, we should have access to Atlassian folk that are like, hey, here's the latest drop of features, like here's how you use them, as opposed to us interpreting how they expect us to use them. And it'd be so cool to have something similar to like from a developer's perspective too, right? Like it would make the learning curve so much quicker. It would, I think it would bring more people into the ecosystem to develop because then that barrier to entry is low.
True. Well, it's never going to be as easy to develop for Atlassian than it would be to just learn how to basically use Jira or the tools. But I agree with you. I don't agree necessarily with you on they need to tell us what it's for. I always feel like product owners and product managers have a specific idea on what a new feature should be doing and how people should use it. And I feel like actual users know better often on how we can use/abuse this
Yeah,
feature.
I agree. I agree with you. But the reason I said my comment is because when you make the videos at my level, people are expecting you to give them the direction. And I feel I'm giving them a direction, but I don't know if it's the right direction. Right. And so I I give all of my videos are given off of my years of experience and how I've used it, right? Which is basically what you said. But deep down inside of me, I'm still like wondering, like, what if I cost a company like $1 billion error because they did something that I said go do it this way, right? So that's where I would like an appreciation to at least understand like why did you have this feature? Like what was the idea? So I could still come to my own conclusion, but I would still like to go, am I even
Mhm.
close? Like how far am I from that line? Right?
Get at least get the intention. Like, what's the intention behind this feature?
Right. Not necessarily
Instead of
like
just
for me to go and push and evangelize that agenda, right? But at least to know here's the baseline, here's how I'm using it, and then at least bring awareness. Go, hey, like it was intended for this, but you can also do these other things with it, right? I think people would appreciate. But right now, when I push something out, it's blindly, it's gonna work or it's not gonna work, but it worked for me.
So when I used to teach, like train Jira admins on like how to use Jira properly, I always told them the amazing thing about Jira is it can do anything. The most terrible thing about Jira
They can
is
do
it can do
anything.
anything.
Ain't
And
that
so
the truth?
after training them for 3 days on all different schemes and all different components, all the different things and aspects of Jira, I gave them an assignment. Now go and use Jira for something that is totally unrelated to anything you do professionally. And so one person started using it to manage their beer collection, another used it to manage the sale of Belgian chocolate to China. So his issue
I
types were
forgot you
like
guys
dark
have the best
chocolate, white
chocolate in the
chocolate.
world.
Excuse me?
I said I forgot you guys have the best chocolate in the world.
Yes, we do. And the best beer too. So like beers and chocolate in Belgium. And the idea there was to showcase that you can use Jira for pretty much whatever you want, as long as you stay within certain boundaries on like, don't create 1,000 custom fields, don't create 1,000 different workflows. Think things through. Keep it to the KISS principle. Keep it simple.
Right.
And I also told them I don't know all the things about Jira. Like you mentioned earlier, like people expect me to know all the things. I always tell people, look, I don't know all the things, but I know where to look for the things I don't know. And I know people who know these things, so I can go and ask them. And I think that's also the value you can bring is acknowledge the fact that yes, that is a really good question. I don't know the answer, but let's find out together. And that's when you're doing like it's public learning. And I think that's also value you bring to the community and
Yeah.
to your audience.
That's what I was talking about, those live streams. I'm like, let's learn Forge together, even the pitfalls, right? Like even the this didn't work out, or this assumption was not correct, or I don't even know where to find the document for this type of thing, right? Like but I think that's so critical to put out there, because everybody assumes that we wake up and we just know it. But there's a
Yes.
lot of work that's happening behind the scenes to get there.
So as a dad of 4 boys, I can tell you when we get into this world, we don't know a lot of things. We know how to eat, we know how to, well, do the other end,
Yeah.
and we know how to cry and sleep, and that's about it. And we need to learn everything. And it doesn't stop when we get older. We suddenly expect to know everything, or we think people expect us to know everything. We don't. I don't know everything. I've been in this ecosystem for so long, I still discover new things every single day. And that's just the Atlassian, which is only like a sliver of what I do. I'm also a Lego fan, and I discover new stuff about Lego all the time. I'm a board game geek. There's thousands and thousands of board games out there I haven't discovered yet, I haven't played yet, and I want to learn about. I speak a couple of languages, but I'm still interested in other languages. And even that is only a sliver of what's out there. And I always tell people that what you know is like a circle. And just outside the circle is what you don't know. And the more you know, the bigger the circle grows. The more circumference there's, the more things you don't know yet that are out there. So the more you know, the more you don't know. And that's okay, because you're a continuous learner. And if anybody expects you to know all the things, their circle is too small, and they haven't figured out that there's so much stuff out there that they don't know yet.
So what's your biggest tip that you have for somebody who wants to start learning? Because I'm assuming that you, as a development relations role that you've had, this community role, you're encountering with a lot of folks that are new. So what's your in your experience, what's the biggest like great first tip for taking that first leap of faith into something that's so scary or unknown?
That is a really good question. I have
It's
multiple
recorded, so we can cut it, so don't worry.
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. Like you mentioned earlier, it's like
How do
scary
you
to
know
ask
what
questions.
to ask? I've always heard that, right? Like no question's a dumb question, right? But if I'm asking somebody like you, so many years of experience, you have a certain tolerance for this question is worth my time, and this question is like you could have Googled it type of question, right? Like, so what advice would you have on that perspective? Like, how much thought should you put into your question before you ask the question?
So if you ask the question in a community, take time to get to understand the community first. So read some content. Look at like who are the most active posters. Maybe if you see somebody answering a lot of like the basic questions, reach out to them directly and say, "Hey, I have a question. I don't know yet if like this is a good question for this. I'm new here. Can you please help me?" Instead of immediately beginning with the question. A lot of people are happy to share knowledge if you show respect for the fact that they put energy into it. The one thing I hated as a developer relations person were the show me the codes kind of questions. Like, I have this problem, I want you to solve it and give me all the source, the code I need to solve this problem.
Right.
Without giving context, without introducing yourself, without you giving anything back to the community. So take time to understand the community. If you want to go directly to a person, get to know them a little bit. Introduce yourself. Make it a people to person, make it an interaction. It's not about just asking and getting. It's also about giving
Right.
back to this person.
I
Think
mean, you're
about it.
describing the word community.
Yes, it is community. Well, I'm a community person at heart. I'm a technical nerd who loves people and loves working with people and strongly believes in the power of community. And I feel that's the best way. Join the community fully. Learn by reading and then eventually understand, okay, these are the people I can ask questions to right now, and these are the people I should ask questions probably at a later point in time when I know more. Because you can learn a lot of things about this, like about a community just by reading.
Yeah. Or even
And
learning how to articulate the question, right? Because I would be much more open to saying like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Here's what I've done. I am stuck somewhere here, right? Because even if it's a repeat question, even if it's a dumb question, like at least I can appreciate as the person with the answer to go, okay, they have at least done some effort to try to figure this out.
yes, at least you Google it. At least
Right.
you use the search functionality in the community.
Which,
Unless
by
of
the way, every day gets harder and harder to use, right? There's so much documentation out there.
that is definitely true. But my biggest tip is actually don't be afraid to ask the first question. Even if it is a question you'll later regret, it is a learning process. Even asking questions is a learning process. And it's okay to fail on those fronts. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes asking questions. It's something I tell my kids too. Failure doesn't exist. It's a lesson you haven't learned yet. So the worst thing you can do is not ask the question, even if it's the wrong question. But because asking that first question is going to give you feedback that is going to make your second question better, which is going to make your third best question better. So your first question to me is like, okay, where do I get started? I would say start reading the developer community content. Start reading into the documentation. You've already been doing this. So you're already getting stuck somewhere. And my next step would be, okay, now post a question, documenting all the things you've already done. It shows that you care, it shows that you put in the work. And then say, I'm stuck right here. Can anybody help me?
Yeah. I don't know. I appreciate everything you said. I think deep down though, for me, I would still get tremendous value. And I don't know that this is the right thing to even say, but I would love it to, maybe it's just the way I learn, right? But I think it'd be so cool, like a getting started that actually like takes you on this journey to get started. Not just like gives you an example and goes, go figure it out from here. Right. But like walks you and like progressively evolves with you. Like I don't know how to even execute that, but I think that would be
Oh,
so powerful.
I totally agree with you that self-service, like this would be much better than having to go ask questions and figuring things out and all of those things. I don't know if the Atlassian focus is on this right now, and as long as their focus isn't on it, and isn't continuously on it, so it stays up to date, it's not going to happen. And to be fair to the team, this team is like 6 people strong. There's more products, Atlassian products out there than there are team members.
Oh yeah.
Each of those Atlassian products has like a whole bunch of updates all the time for them to constantly adapt, build, and update documentation. And example apps is really, really tough with such a small team. It's basically impossible.
But
So
what
that
about the
means-
community themselves, though?
Excuse me?
What about from the community themselves, not necessarily from Atlassian?
It would be awesome to see this. I think it would be a massive effort. I know of some people who are like really, really good at Forge who might be able to do this. And I know they're thinking about it, but I haven't convinced them yet.
You haven't convinced them yet. Well, you've convinced me to at least try to do some sort of a live stream learning Forge.
I might be able to give you some names for like who can help you.
Yeah, because I usually depend on my wife, and for me, maybe it's, again, it goes back to that imposter syndrome, right? Like, unless you have a really solid core and you believe in yourself as a developer, I think it's easier to jump head in to this problem, right? To learning how to code for the Atlassian ecosystem. But when you are not sure of your skills, I think this just gets even more intimidating, right? Like, it's hard. I think it's harder to get started when you have no confidence.
Something I've been telling developers for almost 2 decades now, Alex, is the technical skills of your job are the easy part to learn. It's the soft skills, the people skills, the understanding other people, the communicating with other people, the translating whatever somebody tells you to do to what you should actually be doing and the result they want to have. Same for you. It looks daunting, but you have the technical skills to do this. You have the knowledge and the brain to be able to understand this. It's all of the other stuff that's hard. Like, what are you going to build? Which problem are you going to solve? How is this problem impacting your future customers? It's building an entire business around it. It's much more difficult than understanding the technical difficulties.
Really, because I feel like that's the easier part. I feel like that's the easier part because, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just the entrepreneurship in me, right? But where I find the scary thing is, again, it's just finding that thread, right? Finding that first thread, I feel like is the hardest first step. Because, like what you were saying, right? Like, you can figure it out. I have no doubt in that. I think anybody who has, like, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yes.
But there's got to be a way to make it less painful to get started.
On that, I'm 100% agree with you. There's definitely ways to make this less painful. Like I said earlier, I would love it for somebody to get into the Atlassian creative community and just do technical content on how do I build a Forge app and take you through all of those steps and keep it up to date. I think it would be an immense amount of value for the Atlassian developers. I'm not the right person to do that. Like I said, I might know some people who want to do that.
Right.
But it is a challenge for sure. And I know the Atlassian DevRel team is trying to figure out how to handle this challenge for all of the products, with all of the updates. Because like you've got a data center and you've got cloud, you've got all of the different tools, they're constantly adding tools on top of it.
Do people still have incentives to build for data center?
Oh, yes. There's still people building for data center, new apps being built for data center. Yes.
I get that, but never mind. I don't think it's a good question.
Should you be building for data center is maybe the question. Will Atlassian help
Right.
you?
That's what I was trying to articulate in my brain, the right way to ask that question. Should.
I think there's still a massive market out there for data center and for data center apps, at least for another decade. Will Atlassian help you build data center apps?
Probably not.
Maybe, depending on which Atlassian you speak to.
All right. Well, I'm still trying to figure this all out. I think right now, Forge is where my wife and I've been focusing on and stumbling through it. I mean, like I said, we've gotten quite far. I'm actually quite proud of where we are. But that whole database and trying to figure out where to store and how to store data, that's the next nut we got to go crack.
I would say show your show where you're at on the developer community and ask the question, okay, where do I find documentation on how to do this?
Right.
You don't have to show me the code, just tell me where to find the answer to this question. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, and I think something more people got to do. So in the last couple minutes here that we have together, I want to ask you just a couple more fun things, right? One,
Go for it.
What's the deal with the colorful things in the map wall that I've been staring at for the last 55 minutes? Why I've been trying to find a pattern, an order. Is it a clock?
No, it's nothing. They're magnets.
They're just magnets. They're just you randomly put them on there. No purpose for them.
No, like for example, there's this Lego poster one of my kids put up.
Okay. So the whole wall is magnetized?
Yes, the entire red wall is magnetized.
How do you go about magnetizing a wall?
It's magnetic paint. So I put on like 4 layers of magnetic paint, and it basically has like these tiny iron particles in it. So and it like even though I put in 4 layers, it still kind of depends on where on the wall you put the magnets, if they stick or not.
So maybe another 4 layers.
Yeah, go for minimum 4 layers. For sure.
My wife doesn't like me putting holes in the wall, so maybe magnets might be the way to go about it.
Yeah, this works. I actually have a Banksys image here next to me too. That is like, life is short, shield the duck out.
So that needs to go on a shirt.
I'm pretty sure you can find it on a shirt if you want to. But yeah, so that's the thing. The magnets, and I use it as my idea wall. So sometimes it's like all post-its and stuff on this wall. Sometimes there's nothing.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just trying to figure out, like, is that like that like the country of Belgium? Like, what image?
No,
but you just apparently out there.
Like I said, there's no organization here. I could like put them all by color or whatever. No.
Okay. Then the next question, maybe our closing question: what's the most meaningful conversation you had with an Atlassian employee? Whether it be Mike, Scott, any of those.
I've had so many.
What's the one that profoundly stood out to you the most?
That is a really, really good question.
Who's your favorite person you've spoken to?
All of the Atlassians and community leaders.
All of them?
Not all of them.
Well, what's something that stands out to you? Like, what's something that you walked away going, wow, that was a good chat?
I always looked up to, Mike and Scott, because of the fact that they're still so down to earth. Like have you
ever had like coding conversations with them, or technical conversations with them?
Not about code. I did ask Mike if he knows how much of his code is still in Jira, and he's like, I hope nothing. So I did have a conversation with Mike about it. I talked with Mike about the Atlassian Dragon's Lair quest, for example, about the amazing journey Atlassian has gone through. I think for me, the most meaningful conversations were just with random Atlassians and people in the community. I couldn't pick one favorite because I've had so many that had an impact on my life too. I've talked to Scott, I've talked to Mike, I've talked to Jay, Simon. I learned that he was a professional pianist before he became president of Atlassian. Well, there were some steps in between, but I've had wonderful conversations with like my managers, with my coworkers, with random Atlassians I met when I was in an office. I've had deep emotional conversations at rooftop bars across the world with Atlassian community leaders. I've seen how Atlassian has made an impact on thousands and thousands of people around the globe, and how each Atlassian wants to bring something good into the world and help make it a little bit better. And I've seen this reflected in the Atlassian community too. The Atlassian community leaders, they're a group of do-gooders. They want to do good. They want to give back. And it's for those reasons that I can't pick a single conversation, because I've had so many with so many wonderful people. I'm sorry, like Alex, I don't want to
That
say
is
like,
the
oh yeah, my conversation with Scott was like awesome. To be honest, my first ever conversation with Scott went like this. It was a remote call. He was having a conversation with our entire team. He asked me a question at the exact same point. Aaron, my at that point in time 2-year-old, was standing at my leg and like pulling at my leg. So it was like, 1 second, Scott. Hi, this is Aaron. He wants to say hi because I couldn't understand your question because he was also saying something. And Scott was like, hey, Aaron, how old is he? I'm like, yeah, he's 2. Oh, I have a 2-year-old too. Wonderful to see him. And so then I could put Aaron back and then I could actually answer the question. But it's those kind of little things that made my time at Atlassian and still make my time here in the Atlassian world amazing. It's all the conversations with all the people everywhere. I take something with me from every single conversation I have. I've grown as a person in this ecosystem, immensely grown as a person. And the one thing I try to do with every conversation is always make it two-way. Give something back for everything I get out of it.
well, Peter, very, very well said. Again, great answer. Again, I just threw that one at you, so I wasn't expecting like a person, but I think I think it just goes to just say how amazing this Atlassian ecosystem is, right? Like every conversation that I tend to have too, right? This is one of the reasons why I do this interview series is just like so many different perspectives, so many different ways that Atlassian touches everybody's lives, and I find it fascinating to just see how we're all together, but everybody's so unique. But at least once a year, we can all come together and be a family.
Well, twice this year because there's Barcelona.
There's Barcelona. I'm working on a passport, so we'll see. We'll see if it happens. This 12-hour flight's not something I'm looking forward to, but we'll see.
Step by step, hour by hour, movie by
Hour
movie.
by hour.
I have too much experience with those kind of things.
What I'll do is I'm just gonna download the entire like Atlassian developer documentation and just force myself to read it on a plane.
To be honest, the only thing I did on planes was watch movies. That were like my downtime because as soon as you land, you're in work mode. As soon as you get back home, you're in dad mode. So it was like, time on the plane is my time. And I'm like, binge watching whatever.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see work mode and when you land. But all right, Peter, again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you being here. I'll put links to whatever you want down below, so make sure you send them over to me. But this was a great conversation. I feel bad. I don't think that we formally met or said hi. Maybe there was so much going on at Teams this year, but
We
next year,
passed each other, I think, a couple of times, and that's about it. But
yeah,
we can make up for it.
yeah, next year let's make some at least 5 minutes. Appreciate
Yes,
it,
thank
Peter.
you for
Thank you so
having me,
much.
Alex.
And make sure you bring some of that Belgian chocolate too.
I will. Next time I'll bring you some. Or if you come to Barcelona, it's easier for me to bring it.
Very true. All right, I'll keep you updated. All right, thank you.
Perfect.
And a special thank you to our sponsor for today's video, Resolutions Out of Office Assistant for Jira and JSM. Don't ever manually reassign a ticket when somebody's out of office. Use this app to take care of it all for you. You'll thank me later.